Karen's costly cruelty. The community center smelled of pine cleaner and old coffee, a familiar comfort to me as I waited for Mom after her shift. She'd been a janitor there for 15 years, her hands rough from scrubbing floors, her smile warm despite the long hours. But that evening, a sharp voice sliced through the hum of the crowd, mocking her faded uniform, and I knew trouble was brewing. I was 16, lanky and awkward, leaning against the wall near the exit, scrolling through my phone. Mom, Clara, was finishing up, her graying hair tucked under a faded cap, her navy uniform patched at the elbows. She always said her job wasn't glamorous, but it kept us fed, kept our small apartment warm. To me, she was a hero, even if the world didn't see it that way. The community center was hosting its annual charity bazaar, a chaotic swirl of vendors, kids running wild, and neighbors haggling over homemade jams. Mom was sweeping up confetti from the kids' craft table when I heard it, a voice dripping with disdain. "Look at that uniform, did you pull it out of a dumpster?" The words came from a woman I'd later know as Karen Whitmore, mid-40s, with a sleek bob and a purse that probably cost more than Mom's monthly paycheck. She stood by a table selling overpriced candles, her manicured finger jabbing the air toward Mom. A few people nearby chuckled nervously, unsure whether to engage. Mom froze, her broom still, her face a mask of quiet endurance. I stepped closer, my stomach twisting. Karen's friend, a woman in a matching designer coat, egged her on. "Seriously, Clara, don't they give you something cleaner to wear? You're embarrassing the place." The words landed like a slap, and I saw Mom's shoulders hunch just for a second before she straightened and resumed sweeping. I wanted to shout, to tell them to shut up, but my voice caught in my throat. I was just a kid, invisible to people like Karen. The bazaar continued, but Karen's cruelty didn't stop. She followed Mom to the next table, her voice louder now, drawing more eyes. "I mean, really, who lets someone like her work in public? It's a disgrace." She laughed, a sharp, performative sound, and her friend nodded like a bobblehead. Mom kept her head down, sweeping faster, but I could see her hands trembling. I clenched my fists, heat rising in my chest. Why wasn't anyone stopping this? Then came the twist I didn't expect. A man in a flannel shirt, burly and bearded, stepped out from behind a booth selling handmade pottery. His name was Tom, a regular at the center who'd known Mom for years. He wasn't loud or flashy, but his presence commanded attention. "Karen, you're making a fool of yourself," he said, his voice low but firm. The crowd hushed. Karen's smirk faltered, but she doubled down. "Excuse me, I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. This place deserves better than that." She gestured at Mom's uniform like it was trash. Tom crossed his arms, his eyes narrowing. "Clara's been keeping this place spotless longer than you've been coming here to complain. Maybe you should look in a mirror before you talk about disgrace." The air thickened. Karen's face flushed, but she wasn't backing down. She stepped closer to Mom, her voice rising to a near shriek. "You think you're some saint? Clara, you're nothing but a glorified maid." That's when I couldn't stay silent anymore. I pushed through the crowd, my voice shaking but loud. "She's my mom, and she's worth 10 of you." The words burst out, raw and unpolished, and for a moment, the room seemed to hold its breath. Karen turned her venom on me, her eyes narrowing to slits. "Oh, look, the janitor's kid thinks he's tough. Stay in your lane. Kid." But the crowd wasn't with her anymore. Whispers turned to murmurs, and I saw heads shaking, faces hardening. Tom stepped forward again, now joined by Mrs. Alvarez, the center's director, who'd been drawn by the commotion. She was a small woman, but her authority was undeniable. "Karen, that's enough," Mrs. Alvarez said, her voice cutting through the tension. "You're disrupting the event and disrespecting a valued employee. Leave. Now," Karen scoffed, tossing her hair. "You can't kick me out. I'm a donor. I keep this place running." That was her mistake. Mrs. Alvarez's eyes flashed. Your donations don't buy you the right to humiliate people. Out! Karen opened her mouth to argue, but the crowd was closing in, their disapproval a palpable force. She grabbed her purse and stormed toward the exit, but not before knocking over a trash bin in a final act of defiance. Garbage spilled across the floor, soda cans, crumpled napkins, a half-eaten cupcake scattering like the wreckage of her ego. Mom, still clutching her broom, stared at the mess, her face unreadable. I thought that was the end of it. Karen was gone. The crowd dispersed, and Mom went back to cleaning, her silence heavier than usual. I helped her pick up the trash, my hands shaking with leftover anger. Why didn't you say something? Mom, I asked, my voice low. She sighed, her eyes tired but kind. Words like hers don't change who I am. Danny, I know my worth. But the story didn't end there. The next morning, a video surfaced on the community center's social media page. Someone, Tom, I later learned had recorded Karen's outburst. The clip was raw, unedited, capturing every venomous word, every sneer. It spread like wildfire. By noon, it had thousands of views with comments flooding in. Disgusting behavior. Clara deserves better. Who does she think she is? I watched the video on my phone, my heart pounding. Karen's cruelty was now public, and the internet wasn't kind. The backlash grew. Local businesses, many of whom knew Mom, started posting in support. The bakery where she bought her morning coffee offered her free pastries for a month. The hardware store owner, Mr. Jenkins, wrote a long post about how Mom had stayed late to help clean up after his daughter's birthday party at the center. No questions asked. The community was rallying, and Karen was nowhere to be seen. Then came the real twist. A woman named Sarah, who'd been at the bazaar but stayed quiet, reached out to Mrs. Alvarez. She was a lawyer, specializing in workplace harassment, and she'd seen the whole thing. What Karen did wasn't just rude, it was targeted harassment, Sarah said in a meeting at the center a few days later. I was there, sitting in the back, listening as she laid out the case. Clara's workplace is the community center. Karen's actions created a hostile environment, and there's precedent for legal action. I didn't fully understand the legal jargon, but I got the gist. Karen wasn't just going to walk away. Sarah filed a formal complaint on Mom's behalf, citing emotional distress and public humiliation. The center backed it, and the case moved fast. Karen, it turned out, wasn't just a random loudmouth. She was a real estate agent with a reputation for throwing her weight around. But her status didn't save her. The court date came a month later, and I sat in the gallery, my heart in my throat, as Mom took the stand. She spoke quietly, her voice steady but heavy. I've worked hard my whole life. I'm proud of what I do. But that day, she made me feel like nothing. I wanted to cry, to run up and hug her, but I stayed still, gripping the bench. Karen, dressed in a sharp blazer, tried to play the victim, claiming she was just joking and that Mom was too sensitive. The judge wasn't buying it. The video, the witnesses, the spilled trash, it all painted a clear picture. The ruling came down like a hammer. Karen was fined $7,500 for emotional distress and ordered to issue a public apology. The judge's words were ice cold. Your actions caused real harm. Ms. Whitmore, you don't get to belittle someone's livelihood and walk away unscathed. The courtroom was silent, but I felt a surge of pride for Mom, for standing up in her quiet way. Karen's apology was posted online, a stiff, grudging paragraph that only fueled more backlash. Her real estate business tanked, clients dropped her, reviews called her out, and her social media went silent. The community center, meanwhile, started a Clara Fund, a small scholarship for kids of essential workers, funded by donations that poured in after the video. Mom didn't want the spotlight, but she smiled when she saw the first recipient, a girl who wanted to be a nurse, get her award. Life didn't change much for us. Mom still worked her shifts, still came home with sore feet and a warm smile. But something shifted in me. I saw how one person's cruelty could ripple, how a community could push back, how justice could sting. Karen's $7,500 fine wasn't just money, it was a lesson, carved in the wreckage of her reputation. What do you think, was the punishment fair? Or did Karen deserve more? Or less? Share your thoughts. I'm curious to hear.